Growing my money, saving myself to 100K in Canada was a real challenge. At that time, a few years ago, I was still earning very little, so saving every loonie and toonie mattered. But eventually, after a few years, I got there, and it was such a great feeling. And today in this video, I want to share with you the exact strategies that I used. Contrary to what many people might think, it wasn't just about grabbing grocery discounts and not buying any coffees. It also wasn't about depriving myself and feeling miserable. And here's also what many people get wrong about getting to 100K. You don't need to have an 80K or even 100K salary. In fact, you can get to your first 100K even on an average salary of 50 or 60K. I'm not saying it's gonna be easy, but it's doable. Also, you won't get to your first 100K by investing your way to it. Don't get me wrong, investing is super important to grow your money, but it won't be the thing that gets you to 100K. What I've learned is that to get to 100K in a reasonable amount of time, frugality will need to be a central part of your strategy. And here you might say,
everyone knows you have to be frugal to save money, duh.
But so how come that many Canadians still don't have their first 10K, let alone 100K saved? The government, taxes, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course. But if you really want to change your life, you gotta start focusing on what you can control. That's the reality. The reason many people don't see their savings growing even though they're trying hard to be frugal is because they don't focus on what matters. They save paper clips and try showering a minute less or so to save $20 per year. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. In the game of frugality, every cent counts and small savings do add up. But if you want to get to 100K in a reasonable amount of time, that is within 5 years or so, you gotta have a bigger strategy. Focus on the big ticket expenses, especially those that are unusually large in your particular situation. So strategy number 1 is to be frugal in the right places. The other reason that frugal habits probably haven't paid off for you yet is because they're just so hard to keep. So here's what I did when I was trying hard to save money. I didn't just force myself to be frugal, but I kind of negotiated with myself. A frugal deal if you will, so that it became less of a chore, but more like a game that was fun and rewarding. So strategy number 2 is to negotiate a frugal deal. So this is how I then applied these two powerful strategies to my expenses. First, I look at my big ticket expenses, and these are likely going to be the same for you. Number 1 is housing. 5 years ago, my husband and I had the choice between renting a 2-bedroom apartment or just a 1-bedroom apartment. At the time, we could still get a 2-bedroom apartment in an old building for around $1,800, while a 1-bedroom apartment was cheaper at about $1,600. So what did we do? We went for a studio apartment instead. Many people think that living in a 325 square foot studio apartment is like living in a shoebox. And of course, a 1-bed or 2-bedroom would have been nicer. But it turned out that living in a small studio apartment was very livable. And compared to what many people in Hong Kong live in, our studio was a luxury. It was even cozy and comfortable. Anyways, comfort aside, what mattered to me at that time was to get to my first 100K as soon as possible. So I negotiated with myself the following frugal deal. Forget about the ideal living situation for the time being. Forget about that fancy apartment with a gym and pool access and sauna and so on and all that space. For the following 3 years, you're gonna stay in this tiny studio apartment and make the best of it. You're going to pay only $1,100 for it per month and save a ton of money on all the furniture I would otherwise buy for a larger apartment. And then once I reach and exceed my first goal of 100K, then let's talk about moving into a larger apartment. And I would say that this strategy was the one that made the biggest dent because it saved us up to $10,000 each year. Once I got to 100K, I bought a condo with my husband, but even then we chose to stay frugal with our choice of property and again opted for a studio apartment that we planned to stay in until our next milestone was achieved. But that's a story for another time. So the choice of downsizing your living quarters is a tough one, but it will be the one that will make the biggest dent for most people. And it doesn't mean that you have to live in a studio apartment like we did. It's not realistic for most people. Perhaps you're a family of 3, so instead of living in a 3-bedroom, you get a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom with den and so on. The point is just to live in less space than you ideally need so that you can score the big savings. Now, another big ticket expense is number 2, and that's transportation. In 2021 alone, Canada had a transportation spending of $9,500 per year per household. And note, this was during the pandemic. In other years, it was well over $10,000. So there's where all our money goes. So we decided to say no to all of that by just taking public transportation and the occasional Uber ride. We stuck to a transportation budget of just about $1,000 per year in total for the two of us. Now, I completely understand that's not possible for everyone. If you have kids, mobility issues, or absolutely need a car to get to your faraway job, then of course you have a strong case for a car. I give you that. But even then, there are still many ways to save. Maybe it doesn't have to be this brand new Honda Trail Passport. See, I can't even get these names straight because I haven't had a car for a while. Or even a brand new Toyota RAV4. Perhaps just a 5-year-old used car that is 50% cheaper will do it as well. Now, if you ask me, did we actually want a car at that time? The answer is we had our share of being stuck in traffic for hours and hours when living in Jakarta. But of course, a car would have been nice here in Toronto. But the real question was it worth the extra cost of 5 to 10K per year? And the answer at that time was no. And even now, as we've grown our wealth and more than tripled, quadrupled our incomes, we've still decided to hold off. See, here's the deal we negotiated with ourselves back then. For now, we're going to sludge through the snow to get to the TTC, waste 10 minutes waiting for the bus that's late so that we can save 5 to 10K each year for the next few years. But it's not going to be forever. This is just a phase, a car-free phase of our lives, if you will, that we intentionally choose. At some point, once we reach an income of X or wealth of X, we will buy a car. So I'm not anti-car here, I just know my priorities. This is what many people get wrong. It's not either or. It's not buy a car or no car. That's the wrong multiple choice option. But rather it's buy a car now or later, or buy a new car or a used car. Saving money is not just about adding dollars to your stack of savings. It's also about opportunity costs. Here's what I mean. Each dollar you spend, you won't be able to invest. But you definitely want to invest because investing will grow your money to get to 100K faster. Guys, in case you're new to investing, you might want to check out Wealthsimple, my favorite online investment platform. I've been investing with them for about 5 years now, and I love them because it's just super easy and fun to use. And there are no fees for trading stocks and ETFs. And you can even earn a $25 bonus if you sign up with them using my link in the descriptions below and funding your account with just $1. Let's go on to the next big ticket item, number 3, which is food. Right now, guys, let me tell you, we are not frugal with food at all. I would say right now we're splurging on food, including buying groceries as well as eating out. But that's because now we can actually easily afford it. Spending a few $100s more or less on food per month doesn't make a difference to our finances. But the only reason we got here in the first place is because 1, we increased our incomes dramatically, and 2, we saved our asses off to grow our wealth. Once I passed 100K and beyond, I felt more relaxed with my expenses and could afford to buy better quality groceries and eat out more. But when I only had 20, 30K in my bank account, it was a totally different story. Here's what we did to save on food and groceries. We decided to buy just the bare minimum needed to sustain our energy and health. At that time, it did not include organic food or food from specialty stores like the Cheese Boutique and Italy, also very little alcohol and snacks. We packed our lunches for work and meal prepped because by meal prepping and using the same types of ingredients, you easily reduce food waste and save money on buying 1,000 different ingredients. We had a rule to only eat out once or twice a week, once at a place that cost $25 for both of us, like a Chipotle for example, and once at a place that cost below $50, like a sushi place. It was a very easy rule for us to stick to save money, but still feel like we could sort of enjoy life in a way. We also stuck to water and never ordered drinks at restaurants except on special occasions like birthdays. Did I buy coffees outside? I did. But rather than being a daily habit, it was a rare treat. I would never buy coffee for takeout, but only buy it when I actually had the time to drink the coffee sitting down in a cafe or with a friend, and that was usually not more than once every 2 weeks or so. By applying these simple rules for our food budget, we saved at least a few $1,000s per year. Now let's get to the next expense item that is difficult to resist, which is number 4, shopping. And here I mean anything from clothing, shoes, bags, electronics, and miscellaneous items. I know it's difficult in times like these where every Facebook or Instagram scroll reveals another enticing ad, where you can't get through a blog or article without seeing a shopping ad of that thing you viewed on Amazon a week ago. I must admit, it takes a lot of willpower nowadays not to buy anything. So in order to keep on track with your savings plan, you need to have a strategy. So here's what I did. One thing is to absolutely have a budget. Without a budget, you're completely lost, and buying versus not buying something becomes absolutely random. At the beginning of each year, make a simple budget, which should include items that you want to buy throughout the year. That can include a new pair of shoes or two, a winter jacket, a new TV, or whatever. Because I'm so used to a frugal mindset, I dread having to buy a new set of the same thing unless the old one is broken. Here, for example, I have this old headphone I used to edit my videos. I had been using this for about 4 years until it was close to falling apart. But yes, this headphone was one of the tools that I used that brought me to a full-time income on YouTube. Only until my YouTube channel grew as well as my income did I upgrade this to an AirPod Max. This pair of ugly slippers, they are 7 years old, and even though I can easily afford new ones, these are one of the many things I decided to keep using until it falls apart or my husband makes me throw away. But anyways, there will be things that you will need to buy or really want to buy, and that's okay. Just list everything down in advance, and then you can set out and hunt the best deal for each item instead of getting trapped in emotional and spontaneous buying. What I also did and still do is to apply a cool down period. I almost never buy anything immediately, except for groceries, toilet paper, and such things, of course. Whenever I add things to an online shopping cart or to Amazon, for example, I just leave it in the cart and let it sit for several days, sometimes even for a week. That really gives me the time to think whether I really want it or not, if I even need it, and if that's the case, I end up buying it. But if not, then I simply delete it. Sometimes our brains just need the pleasure of selecting items and adding them to our carts. And even then, even I bought the thing, I don't always immediately use it. If I buy a new sweater, for example, I would usually just let it sit on my sofa for a week with the tag still on. I would look at it, try it on several times, and see if I really like it. In some cases, I just decided to return the thing, the sweater or whatever, because I realized I was drawn to the item in the moment, but after bringing it home, it didn't look as great after all. Applying all of these shopping strategies ultimately saved me a lot of money. So let me know, guys, what do you think about these frugal strategies, and which one are you going to use or try, or have already been using to get to 100K? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd really love to hear from you. And if you want more tips on how to get to your first 100K, you can check out this video next.